In the highest mountains on the planet, where the air is thin and every breath feels like a conscious effort against nature itself, there lives a people shaped by cold, wind and altitude. The Sherpas of Nepal have inhabited the slopes of the Himalayas for countless generations, walking along trails that wind through cliffs and valleys as if they were natural extensions of their own steppes. The life of the Sherpas is marked by silent resilience. Their villages, formed by stacked stone houses with low wooden roofs, withstand the snowstorms that sweep across the landscape for much of the year. Small windows allow timid sunlight to enter, while inside, the warmth of the wood-burning stove heats both body and spirit. Among all the elements that sustain this austere existence, none is as essential as the yak. Strong, shaggy, and incredibly adapted to extreme cold, the animal is more than a resource. It is a journey companion, a symbol of survival, and a vital link between the people and the land. Sherpas depend on yaks for transportation, along steep trails, carrying goods, food, and equipment across paths that challenge even the most experienced mountaineers. Beyond transportation, the yak represents food and livelihood. Its milk forms the basis of the diet in isolated regions, transformed into thick butter and hardy cheeses that can be stored for long periods. The meat, consumed on specific occasions, provides precious protein in an environment where planting is a constant challenge. Dry dung serves as fuel to heat homes during the harsh winter. Far from the eyes of the world, life follows its own rhythm in the villages scattered across the Himalayas. It is in this setting that Tenzing lives, a 40-year-old man marked by the sun, reflected in the snow, and by the silence of the heights. Unlike many of his age, he never married, while others formed families and shared the weight of life with wives and children. Tenzing chose, or perhaps was chosen for, a solitary path, devoted entirely to his herd of yaks. Tenzing lives in an isolated cabin, far from the center of the village. His home is simple, built from stones taken from the mountain itself, reinforced with dark wooden beams aged by time. He participates in religious ceremonies when necessary, exchanges few words with neighbors, but finds true companionship in the calm gaze of his animals. Every day, even before the first thread of light touches the snowy peaks, Tenzing is already awake. The routine begins with counting the herd. One by one, he observes the approximately 25 yaks under his care, checking whether any have wandered away during the night and whether there are signs of illness or injury. Each animal has a name, a mark, a story that only he knows. After checking the herd, Tenzing begins milking the females. Steam from the warm milk rises into the cold morning air, forming small fleeting clouds. This milk is the foundation of his diet. Part will be consumed fresh, part transformed into thick butter, patiently churned until it reaches the ideal consistency. Another portion will be used to produce yak cheese, a resilient food that can be sold or traded for grains and utensils in the village. After milking and the initial care, it is time to take the herd out to graze. Tenzing guides the yaks along narrow trails in search of areas where vegetation is more abundant. Small green fields appear like rare patches of life among rocks and ice. But in the mountains of the Himalayas, danger is as silent as the snow that falls without warning. Predators lurk among rocks and shadows, masters of camouflage and patience. The most feared of them is the snow leopard, agile and almost invisible against the white landscape. A specialist in steep and rocky terrain, it moves with astonishing lightness, using silent ambushes to capture its prey, usually calves or young animals. Another occasional visitor to grazing areas is the Himalayan brown bear. Although it is not a specialized hunter of yaks, it may attack when the opportunity arises. It also invades areas in search of food, turning over the ground and spreading fear among the herds. Tenzing knows these threats. Since youth, he learned to identify tracks in the snow, to distinguish sounds in the wind, and to sense when something is not right. For years, things went well. Despite knowing about the predators, Tenzing had never lost a single animal. He took pride in his vigilance, in his ability to keep the herd safe. Each passing season without incidents strengthened his confidence. His 25 yaks were everything he had. They were his family, his livelihood, and his reason to remain there, facing the cold and the solitude. But the tide changed. One morning, upon waking and beginning his routine, Tenzing noticed something wrong. 2 calves had disappeared. The silence seemed heavier than usual. While searching the surroundings, he found blood trails marking the snow like a cruel signature. His heart tightened in his chest. Concerned, Tenzing set rudimentary traps near the pasture. He spread bait, reinforced improvised fences, and stayed awake through long nights, alert to any unusual sound. But nothing was captured. The predator remained invisible, intelligent, always one step ahead. 2 weeks later, another attack occurred. This time, an old and thin yak was found dead, its body marked by sharp claws. The feeling of helplessness grew like an internal storm. Tenzing could not believe what was happening. Everything he had was his herd. If the attacks continued, he could lose everything. He thought about going after the predator, tracking its footprints to the final hiding place. But he knew this would be dangerous and would require abandoning his daily routine, leaving the other animals even more vulnerable. The following days were marked by constant tension. Every snapping branch, every shadow cast upon the rocks made his heart race. Even so, he continued leading the herd in search of fresh water and better pastures. Survival demanded movement. Staying still meant hunger. And it was on one of those days, under a deep blue sky and cutting air, that fate finally revealed the enemy. Without warning, a snow leopard emerged from among the rocks, moving with frightening precision. In seconds, it launched itself at a calf, sinking its teeth violently. The herd scattered in panic, bells ringing in disorder. Tenzing felt his blood boil. He shouted, ran, gripping his spear with desperate determination. He struck toward the predator, trying to drive it away. The leopard released the calf for a moment, but did not retreat. Instead, it turned against the man. With an agile leap, it attacked Tenzing, sinking its teeth into his leg. The pain was intense, almost paralyzing. Even so, amid the chaos, Tenzing remembered every sunrise, every animal he had cared for since it was a newborn. He could not fall there. Even wounded, Tenzing had one last card up his sleeve. Hidden beneath his shirt, he carried a sharp knife, normally used for everyday tasks. With effort and courage that seemed to come from somewhere beyond fear, he delivered a direct blow to the leopard's chest. The animal retreated, releasing the man's leg, and staggered for about 100 meters before collapsing to the ground. With difficulty, Tenzing gathered strength to return to his cabin. Upon arriving, he improvised bandages, but the pain and blood loss made his movements slow. Even so, he carried with him the snow leopard's skin, removed with respect and silence. A neighbor, upon learning what had happened, went to visit him. He helped clean the wound, applied traditional medicinal herbs, and reinforced the bandages. For the first time in a long while, Tenzing was not completely alone. The news of the confrontation spread throughout the region, and many began to see him with new respect.